My friends, at this point, I've come to the conclusion that Trump speaks to spiritual advisors, maybe even rabbis, but definitely people who are connected to the Hebrew Bible. Why do I say that? Well, my friends, last week I think I spoke about the whole thing of the 28th time for peace. What am I referring to? I'm referring to, the part in Ecclesiastes in Kohelet, written by King Solomon, that talks about, a time for this, a time for that, a time to plan, a time to this, a time to that, a time to this, right? So if you read Kohelet, if you read that whole part where it talks about a time for this and a time for that, and it's opposite, there are 14 pairs of these times, of these zmanim, time frames, and the last pair is a time for war and then a time for peace. So the 28th time, the 28th time frame, zman, is a time for peace. If you take the 6,000 year trajectory of, I guess, Jewish, what you would call pre-Mashiach history, and you break it up into 28 pieces, each one is 214 years and change, right? And a few folks did some calculations, and they basically came up with essentially this week, like as we speak, to be the beginning of the Zman, the time frame, under the banner of a time for peace, the 214 years of peace. But, as a friend of mine said in the Minyan, but you can't just get peace just like that. There has to be, peace usually comes after war. Well, you guys see what's going on, right? I don't know how this whole thing is going to end. Hopefully it won't end with too much bloodshed. Hopefully it won't end, honestly, with Gog and Magog and all that stuff. And the things that we think about are the worst case scenarios. But my friends, how do I know that Trump gets consultations or gets advice from spiritual leaders? He wrote on his Truth Social just, 15, 20 minutes ago, "It is now a time for peace. Congratulations." That's all he wrote. He wrote one sentence. Folks, normally you see he writes like entire paragraphs. Again, whether you like what he writes or you don't like what he writes, or you like the fact that he writes, or you don't even like the fact that he writes these elaborate things, or how he writes, Some people joke, he every time he writes an announcement, and then at the end he's like, "Thank you for your attention to this matter." Like very kind of robotic or maybe like disconnected or cold. But he just wrote one sentence 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago. "It is now a time for peace." It's like he's literally announcing, "Attention everyone, it's now a time for peace." As if he's expecting people to just adhere to this decree, right? No, folks, it's not a decree. It's him echoing something that is said in Kohelet, and it's actually based on the time that we are in now, in specifically the Jewish calendar, my friends, which is really the calendar of the world, of Hashem's calendar. Yes, not to be presumptuous, but yes, I am being presumptuous. Anyway, guys, just wanted to give that little nugget, and B'ezrat Hashem, it is a time for peace, and hopefully not Gog and Magog or our worst nightmares. All right, guys, talk to you soon.